Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, watch, wherever you are, wherever you're doing, however you're consuming the content. Appreciate you taking the time to come check it out. We've got a pretty good show for you today. We've got an interview with the newly announced general manager of the Wichita Regulators. His name is Chris Stevens. We dive into some of the things that could have gone a little bit better for the league in Wichita in 2024, as well as taking a look into 2025 and what Chris is excited about with the AF1, what Chris is excited about with the city of Wichita, and of course the regulators themselves. So we had a really good conversation with him. So excited for everybody to check that out. Then after that, we'll dive into some of the latest signing news and coaching hires in the IFL and the AF1. But before we dive into anything, it's plug time. If you don't already, please give us a follow on all of our socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball. Off the Wall FB. We are on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok. So please give us a follow on each of those if you don't already. I have a feeling you probably do if you're watching this video, but hey, you never know. Might be coming across some new folks through YouTube or through Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So speaking of those three, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, leave a comment, do all that fun stuff. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please go to the show page and rate it 5 stars, do all that stuff too. It helps the algorithm and all that fun stuff. So like I said, we got a great interview with General Manager Chris Stevens of the Wichita Regulators that we'll dive into right now. Here's Chris. All right, joining us on the show today, we've got the newly announced General Manager of the Wichita Regulators, Chris Stevens. He played a bit for the Regulators in 2024, and he's played several years in different arena leagues. But we'll dive into that in just a little bit. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show. It's a busy time for AF1 and GMs. How are things going in your world?
As you said, everything's going busy. It's going good, Trey. I appreciate it. First off, thank you for having me. Definitely excited to be a part of this. It's a little bit different being on the office side for sure, but it's busy. It's a new reform that we're going into, and I'm extremely excited. Definitely learning a lot, but also able to put a lot of my input in as well. So I'm really excited. Looking forward to this season.
Yeah, I bet coming off the field from this past year, it feels like drinking from a fire hose at times, where it's just a lot of info all at once.
It definitely does. But the good thing is I see myself as a giant sponge in that case, so I'm able to kind of take it all in at one time and do what's needed. So definitely lots of reverting back to a lot of questions and things. But other than that, I'm excited and I'm taking it on.
Love that. Well, to get started, tell us about your arena football journey and how you were introduced to the sport and a little bit of background about you.
Well, a little bit of background is went to school, graduated from Eastern New Mexico University back in 2013. And after that, kind of dove in a little bit of some professional sports, tried to do the NFL camps and things like that of that nature. And then just kind of took a hiatus. I went into I'm more of a blue collar guy. I'm from small town Cleveland, Texas. So I went, did what everybody else did, jumped into the oil field. So I left sports alone for a while, and then worked with the crane industry. And then I had a longtime friend of mine that knew I'd been around the sport. I played with some smaller semi-pro teams here and there when I would come home. And longtime friend of mine, he was like, "Hey," he's like, come on board. I started my own team, and that went on for about 4 years. And then finally jumped on board. And then when I did, the coaching staff that we had that he had brought on board were some former arena coaches from back in the day, back in the AF1, AF2 days. They played, they did some things like that. Coach Gerald Dockery was one of those, and Coach Ty Peace. So I got to learn a lot of the arena ball from them. And then that was when Houston decided to start their own arena football team. And that's kind of, I just smooth transition into that. So that was my first outcome about 7 or 8 years later after my, blue collar ventures. So, and then it just kept steamrolling from there. We started off in the Lone Star League that was back in the AFA for a little bit, and then kind of transitioned into the AAL. And then from there went to the NAL, much larger jump for me. Going into the NAL with teams like the Gunslingers and West Texas Warbirds at the time for the name change. And then And the following year, here I am in the AFL with Wichita. So, and then just kind of transitioned over. So that was my journey from there. So not exactly what I anticipated over the years,
Yeah.
but it started out as hey, I'm just going to do football for fun for a little bit, kind of stay home and have a
Yeah.
quick stress release. It turned into something different. So it's been exciting. Definitely been a learning curve for me, but it's been an enjoyment. And of course, I always loved the sport of football. So just glad to be back in the realm where I felt at home.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that like you said, it was just like yeah, I'll do it on the weekends, just for
Right.
fun. Now it's your life.
Absolutely.
So what was like, did you know about arena football growing up, or what was your very first exposure to it? Was it that the
So,
conversation you had?
um, no, my very first exposure to it was when I was younger, back in the early '90s.
Okay.
My dad originally being from Florida, from Gainesville area, back when the Predators and everybody were playing in the
Yeah.
AFL. So that was
Yeah.
kind of my original exposure back then. Texas, everybody's tried to start a team here in the Houston area or in Texas in general, and you never know what you're going to get. Houston is
Right.
definitely one of those markets that people have tried to bring the sport to, and it's not really lasted that long. So it's been a here
Yeah,
and there,
it's a
hit
tough
and
one.
miss. But my first exposure was when I was younger.
Okay. Yeah, those markets like Houston, it can be very tough because it's almost too big. Like
Yeah,
you need a more niche community for this more niche sport, which kind of makes sense. But as you mentioned before, you played for Wichita in this past season. What was the 2024 season like from a player's perspective? We've heard it from a team owner and coach's perspective, but it seems like the player experience really varied team to team.
going into this season, of course, you hear all the hiccups and things of such with every arena league. That you have your ups and downs and ups and downs. There was
Yeah.
definitely a lot of that this past season, but it was something that I was fortunate enough to have. The family bonding that we had here in Wichita
Right.
to really to really have a stronghold, to have people to lean on, and some of the things that we endured. I could go on and talk about it, but
Yeah, I
at
got you.
the end of the day, we move forward, and I'm just very thankful for the ownership. The ownership just being as transparent as possible. Just hey, look, this is where we're at. This is how things are going to go moving forward, and we're going to make it happen. And
Yeah.
as long as you guys are on board, we're here for you. As long as you're here for us, and that's what it turned out to be. And the coaching staff was the same way. Coaching staff embraced it. So it's just like you said, we rode that roller coaster through and through, and I think the relationship that we built really helped out. So
Yeah, that seems to be the common theme with the teams that transitioned over to the AF1 is that they had the ownership that was A, transparent, and B, just open and like willing to work through things as a unit, not just a owners versus players thing. It was like, no, we're all going through this together.
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that makes a huge difference. Is when you build that within your organization, that will trump anything else that you can endure over the foreseeing future. So
Yeah.
it definitely makes an organization a lot stronger, and especially when you can build off of that.
How did the move to general manager come about? Was that something where you were looking to transition away from playing, or did it just kind of fall in your lap and you're like, all right, I guess we're doing this?
So towards the end of the season, I ended up sustaining an injury
Hmm.
that was looking about 4 to 6 weeks out. So really, at that point, I had to make the decision where I'm 32 years old, not really kind of being scouted by the NFL, based on politics,
Yeah.
and there was some things that were needed in the office with Wichita, and I did have a skill set for some of those things that was needed. Um, so I kind of took on the realm and decided to help out where I could and where I best saw fit, and just showed my skill sets and the knowledge that I did have and what I could in the areas that I could help.
Nice.
And I just continued to kind of push through, and having some background in business and things and running my own businesses.
Hmm.
Uh, it allowed me to bring in fresh ideas and build relationships, and me being involved with the community as such here in Houston allowed me to do the same thing and help build that synergy across the board. And Little did I know, going into the Chicago for the university deal,
Yeah.
apparently it had been discussed amongst ownership and you know, Chris, our owner, it was about a day late coming in, flying in, and
Uh-huh.
excuse me, it was a day late flying in, and but he kind of entrusted me to kind of take the reins and pass me the torch there and let me kind of handle things on my own until he got there. And a lot of the coaches, a lot of other owners from other organizations around the area really supported me and definitely, I guess, kind of put a bug in Chris's ear
There you
whenever he
go.
got there. So I'm not sure how it really came about per se, but next thing you know, that Tuesday night is when it was like, hey, you're a guy, so we don't have to search. So that was
That's awesome.
that was
That's
it was
awesome.
definitely.
So you flew into Chicago just as like a team player, and then you flew out as a general manager.
Oh, I flew in as a director of public relations and
Okay.
assistant GM, kind of more or less, if you will.
Yeah.
Uh, just kind of fill some of the void there, but I flew in just kind of like, hey, I'm just here to be a note taker, and relay the information, and then
Yeah.
one thing led to another, and then Tuesday night was like, hey, before you fly home, here you go.
That's
So
great. That's fantastic. Well, speaking of the AFU in Chicago, what was that like? Like we're starting to see some interviews and stuff being posted on socials, and we saw some of the snapshots that were posted across different team socials on the AF1 social. What was that experience like getting everybody together and being able to talk through best practices, talk about what went well, what didn't go so well in years past?
it again, it was a huge learning experience, but most importantly, the the relationships that were built, the camaraderie that we had.
Yeah.
I've never been a part of any meeting ever where we're there to talk business, but also we were having a great time. Lots of laughter, lots of jokes being told, previous
Mhm.
experiences and things.
Yeah.
Um, Jokes between organizations, kind of, the shots fired, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Definitely a lot of fun. But I definitely took away a lot getting to meet some of the people that I watched as a kid growing up.
Hmm.
Getting to listen to Jeff Fisher, who's been a long time one of my favorite coaches for years, especially
Yeah.
when Houston lost our Oilers. Became a Titans fan for a little bit before the Texans organization, but
Yeah.
getting able to be in a room and engage with some of these people was a little bit overwhelming at some points.
I believe it.
A
Yeah, I believe
little
it.
bit overwhelming at some points, but to be embraced by a lot of the other people from organizations and say, hey, let me get your phone number. Let me, call me if you need
Right.
anything. Or, just other people, being new coming in, things like that. It was just an overall heartwarming experience for everyone. Lots of laughs, lots of jokes, and definitely everybody took away a lot of knowledge and shared their experiences. So it was very impactful. So, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a great annual event for all the owners, GMs, and coaches just to get together and talk shop a little bit. And I think that's what people don't really realize is that obviously on the field, you want to beat the hell out of the other guys. But
Absolutely.
off the field, y'all are in this together. Like you guys need each other to survive.
And that was one of the biggest points that was stressed in the AFU University deals is it was, if we're not all in this together, this league is not going to
Yeah.
be what everyone wants it to be. And that's been stressed time and time and time again. And everybody's on the same page and keeping that unison as we move forward. So
Yeah.
I think this is what's going to be the real turning point of this era for this league, and the future of arena football for sure.
That's super exciting to hear. Well, I want to learn a little bit more about Wichita. What can you tell us about Wichita and how the community has supported the regulators and what makes it all work there?
I'm still learning a lot about the community,
Hmm.
but I do know that for the last 2 years that the organization has been there, um, has been kind of rebirthed, if you will. Previously, there
Yeah.
was the Wichita Wild back in the day, and then the Wichita Force followed, and then things kind of fell into Chris's lap where he took it over and
Hmm.
turned it into something different. Well, there's been a lot of rebuilding relationships, but most importantly, we do have a lot of fans that are faithful They're always at the games. They're always there tailgating. Community is very welcoming, especially with a lot of our players. A lot of us were from out of state. It didn't matter where you were from. It was a lot of jokes and laughters when you went to restaurants or when you went to see some of our sponsors. It's me being from the South, it was almost kind of like having that same Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was nice to go to a whole different city, whole different state, and still kind of get that at home feeling. And a lot of players being from other areas between California to Florida to Atlanta, you name it. It was welcoming no matter where you were from. So it was very, 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 very touching, and to have our community, uh, to have the community support us the way they are, it means a lot. So, and even now, I'm still getting messages from fans with a lot of support, excited from the season. So there has been some feedback. So we're kind of taking it in and learning how to build a better rapport with the community and doing a lot more outreach, which is what we're about. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think Wichita's a bigger city than I think people realize. Like it's not a small town out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's a decent sized city.
it's definitely not. I thought it was, being from a Houston demographic. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is little. But then when you actually look at the numbers of the Wichita population, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, this is not little, and that's where I think the regulators really could be a top tier organization as long as we touch all those bodies that are out there and the families, and really push forward with our outreach like we plan on doing this coming season, and even in the off season. I think we're going to build a everlasting fan base for the future for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's what I like about most of the AF1 locations for franchises is that like there are some places you're competing with other sports teams, but a lot of these markets, you don't have to fight for a piece of the pie. You kind of are the pie when it comes to professional sports. So I think that's an interesting spot for a city like Wichita. Like you see it with Albany. Albany
Mhm.
has like they are the gig in town with they have like lacrosse and stuff there too. But for the most part, it's pretty wide open in terms of the fan base and giving people what they want. And football, it seems to be something that a lot of people in the U.S. want. So I think it's a good spot.
And even though we have other teams such as Southwest, and we
Hmm.
have Salina as well. Salina's been a team that's been around for decades. Um, the fan base follows across the board for us, so it's we love it. Our fans support their fans, but and like you said, it's that
Hmm.
competition on game day where I don't want to talk to you right now, but at the end of the game, it's everybody coming together. So
Yeah,
that's a good area that we have there, that we're able to build that across all three teams and make sure we keep that outreach the same.
yeah,
So
yeah. So what has the evaluation and scouting process look like so far in terms of like seeking out players with a skill set for arena football, and how does it differ from the traditional outdoor game? Is there something in particular where you're like, I think this guy's got it? Like what is that thing that makes you say this guy could be a really good arena player?
so Coach Clinton Solomon was our head coach,
Hmm.
with our defensive coordinator, Aquarius Frazier. Um, they've been in the game. They've been around it. Coach Solo just recently became a IFL Hall of Famer as well.
Hmm.
So he's been around the game. They're kind of heading the process for our recruiting, and because they know what they're looking for, they've been in it a
Right.
lot
They know what
longer.
they want. Yeah,
They know what they want. They know what needs to be put on the field, and I have complete trust in them.
of
And
course.
outside of that, my only input that I put is that the type of characters that we want on the field, on and off the field,
Hmm.
are being brought in accordingly. And they're vetted by who they need to be vetted by. Of course, reaching out to other coaches and things like that
Right.
to give that proper, yes or no, that proper nod, to gain that
I
player's
got you.
rating.
Yeah.
That's really good. So, without saying too much, but I trust
Yeah.
the coaches. I trust the process. They've been very good. Luckily, we have a lot of our guys coming back this year, so they're definitely going to be the ones to kind of be those leaders going in, and as the coaches bring other people in, even going into camp, I know that they're going to make the right choice for what we need to put on the field to not only entertain our fans, but also be out in our community. So
That's great. That's great. So hypothetically, I'm a free agent. I have a couple offers on the table, one of them being from Wichita. What's your recruitment pitch look like to get me to come to the Regulators?
the biggest thing is what we have to offer from the recovery standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what a lot of athletes, you need to take care of your body. So
Yeah.
we definitely offer that at a higher scale. But also with that, we're also very transparent. We're going to let an athlete know, hey, like, hey, this is what we have to offer. This is who we are. This is what we mean. We'd love to have you on board. It's just maintaining that transparency because
Yeah.
you'll it's a lot easier to attract bees with honey than
Yeah.
it is with salt. So that was always a saying that I was told. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
I'm a very firm believer in that. So the more
Yeah.
transparent you are with somebody, I've seen it happen before. I've known guys to go to another team for less money just because of the environment and what they're getting out of that,
Right.
or the opportunities that they can get. You may get paid less over here, but you may have more of an NFL opportunity in this area. So it just really depends, and really doing your research with your teams. But we keep everything as transparent with our guys as possible. And if there's
Yeah.
anything else that we can do for them, we definitely try to cover that.
Yeah, and I think it's a unique opportunity with Wichita in particular, in that you can kind of build that foundation for what this team and franchise can be moving forward. Some other teams have been around a little bit longer, but they have the chance to really be a part of this. 2025 was when Wichita Regulators became great and
Absolutely.
became the future of arena football. So I think that's a super interesting angle for it too. So I'm going to be honest with you. Throughout the 2024 season, there were times I forgot the Regulators existed. And that's because the social media wasn't as great as it could have been. Streams weren't as strong in terms of visibility and just lack of coverage. What are the Regulators going to do a little bit differently in 2025 to improve on some of those things from 2024?
So one of the things that happened this past season was the staffing in a lot of the front office was new to this. So there
Uh-huh.
was a lot of things that one was anticipated by the previous league that was promised
Yeah.
that kind of fell by the wayside. But as we went in further to the season, as you said, things kind of were a little bit rocky there. But
Mhm.
going into this 2025 season, we've already outreached to our media people. We're already getting that locked in. We're going to have high quality. We're looking to set the standard for what the AF1 should look like
Mhm.
across the board. That is one of the biggest things. No matter what area that you look in, it says, okay, look at how Wichita is doing it. So
Right.
we're gonna be putting some high quality media in place coming into this year, and we're already working on it. We're already on the ball. That was actually a big topic in our meeting this morning. We're attacking all measures that we can and getting it done as soon as possible. That way, we don't have any hiccups going into the season.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear, because it was is as you can imagine, I watched a little bit more arena football than most last year. So there were times where I'm like, I really want to watch the Regulators game, but there's just no stream. Like I can't watch it. So it's good to hear that some of those things have been taken into account. It's not falling on deaf ears, so that hopefully going forward, you can start to build that fan base, you know?
Absolutely not. And being that we have guys from different areas, there's guys in our hometowns that people want to watch. Especially
Yeah.
me having the community outreach that I have here in Houston. I have a lot of businesses and things that support it, and sports
Right.
players that want to watch us going into next year. So that's one of the things that it's like, what, we really want to make sure that everybody is able to watch us from anywhere. So that's something that we really took into account, and that we're going to make sure that we really isolate on this year.
When it came to the stream, something else that I noticed on the ones that were available this past year was that the fields and the nets weren't as good as they could have been, especially comparative to some of the other teams in the league. Is there can we expect any improvements or anything getting prepped for the 2025 season in terms of those?
Again, going into the season, there's going to be a lot of changes that we've
Okay.
already. Without saying too much, we're kind of
Yeah.
we're kind of going to roll out a new red carpet this year. Something that people are going to look back and they're going to wait. Hold on, is this the same team from last year? So
Okay.
we're definitely going to shock some shock some eyes and definitely kind of put some big smiles on some of our fans' faces. So
Let's go.
we're not letting the cat out of the bag yet, but there's some things coming that we've already started to implement. So
All right,
definitely
good.
look forward to what we do. So
I've seen the regulators be referred to as the Wichita Regulators and then the ICT Regulators. ICT is that's the airport code for Wichita, is that
yes,
right?
yes.
I've seen the branding kind of mix, like it's a mixed bag of branding. Like on socials, it's sometimes it's Wichita, sometimes it's ICT. Is there a direction more one way than the other? That's the team's going to
No,
lean into.
no, we kind of incorporate both across the board as much. You,
Okay.
you may see Wichita be here, you may see ICT, and that's one of the things that I've learned throughout the community. So you never know where you're at. Somebody's going to refer to it as ICT. Somebody will refer to it as Wichita. It's just
Yeah.
a blended throughout the community. So one business may be, ICT remodeling, blah, blah, blah. And then another building may be, oh, I'm Wichita Motors and Exhaust or whatever it may be. So
Interesting.
the
Okay.
community is definitely mixed. So we try to integrate both. And it's also good for the social media algorithm to pick up because you never know
Yeah.
who's using what hashtags or what it may be. So we want to catch every form of that as much as possible.
That's it. See, that's something an outsider from outside of Wichita would have never known. Because I was looking at them like ICT and Wichita are these the same teams? But yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
So yeah, it definitely took me some learning to get used to, but as soon as I caught on and just again sitting with the community is actually one of our sponsors, just having some food and talking with them, I was like, why does everybody do this? And they were they were blessed enough to kind of lay it down to me and tell me what was going on. So I was like, all
That's
right, well,
great.
that makes sense. So
That's great. Well, so what are you most excited about for AF1 and the Wichita Regulators heading into 2025? I know it's hard to narrow it down just to one or two, but
there's a lot. Be it that we had the AFU um, meet up in Chicago and all the relationships and everything that's been built. I'm really intrigued to see some of the new teams that are coming on board,
mhm.
um, and what level of competition we get at. See if there's any new rivals that come about. Um,
Mhm.
we can always talk about Albany and Orlando, or we can talk about excuse me, Nashville. Nashville and us was a decent one last year, but you
Right.
never know what you're going to run into. In Salina, Southwest, you never know. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what new rivals kind of come about from all this, what new rivalries are built. So I'm excited. So I know there's going to be a lot of competition. Everybody's definitely kind of heading into this with head down, full steam go. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing is and the availing of what's to come. I'm really anticipating the jersey platform outlays. I don't know what to expect this year because
Okay.
we talked about it, but we don't know what route we're going. So
All
I'm
right.
excited to see what the league kind of throws at us this year because the biggest thing is they want everybody to be uniform. So
Makes sense.
I know they're not going to have us on the field looking raggedy, so that's the
Yeah.
that's the plus there. But you know, um, especially some of the younger guys, and myself,
Yeah.
I'm even though I'm in the office, I'm still one of those younger guys that kind of I want to make sure we look good too. You
Yeah.
look good, you play
Yeah.
good, feel good.
Of course.
So um, I don't know. There's a lot. Like you said, I can't narrow it down to one thing. But if I had to go, I just want to see what new rivalries are built going into this year, and how much excitement we can bring. And there's a lot. There's my mind's just kind of going. I want to
I can see I can
so
see
many
it. Yeah.
different things.
I can see it. I know you're very excited to unveil some of these things. But yeah, Gary Compton in the last episode, he mentioned those rivalries as well. That's what made arena football in the 90s and 2000s so strong. And I've been a fan of the markets that have been brought on because it kind of gives people those regional rivalries that can kind of organically develop over time. And I think those rivalries are what's gonna drive some intrigue and really take the league to the next level. So I totally agree with you there. Do you have any announcements coming soon that you want to tease? Any timeline on anything?
One of my biggest things is like I try to tell people is like I don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
I like things to be a shock. Like when
Yeah.
Wichita made the announcement, they were like, "Hey, you can go put it on your." I was like, "Nope." I was like, "We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this the right
The
way.
right
We're
way.
gonna take some
Yeah.
time." Just posting pictures of me coming home from Chicago. It was like, "How'd it go? How'd it go?" Oh, well, it was okay. Blah blah
It's all
blah.
right.
It was good. Learned some
Playing it
stuff. And
coy.
then boom, and then so kind of the mic drop thing. That's what I like to do. Um, we do have some announcements, but one of the ones I will say is going into some of the tryouts and things that we are getting ready to do, and some of the things that we're going to do throughout the season. Um, Going back to that community standpoint, one of the things that we're going to do going forward and really set the standard is everything that we do. We're looking to partner with a lot of the different foster care organizations,
Oh,
and
cool.
everything we do, we're looking to really give back to the youth, the foster care, those foundations. Me, be it that I'm somebody that was adopted myself, coming from
Hmm.
that foundation. So that's one of the plans that we really want to. We don't want it to be about us. We want it to be about everybody.
Yeah.
Um, and our athletes, they love going into the schools. They love doing outreach. They love doing all of these things. So
Cool.
that's a big thing that we're going to do. That really wasn't. You don't get that a lot from a lot of organizations. You do get
Hmm.
the community outreach. You do get the in schools, but it's ultimately finding a way to partner up with one or multiple organizations that really give back constantly, year in, year out, no matter what you do. That's something that I'm looking to change going forward, especially in the
Awesome.
AF1. I want to make an impact. I want to make an impact and be an everlasting impact.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
give a little teaser is our field may be a little different this year. Just,
Okay.
just give that.
All
So,
right, let's go. We can work with that.
the field's going to be a little different this year. I'm not going to
All
say
right.
what, but definitely going to be a little bit different. So I'll kind of drop that teaser in, so I know it's going
All right, there we go. There we go. Awesome.
to.
Well, Chris, thank you so much again for taking the time to join the show today. What's the best way for people to follow along with the Wichita Regulators on socials and stay up to date on the latest happenings?
Facebook and Instagram are going to be the best ones for sure.
Hmm.
Of course, that's all a lot of mainstream there.
Yeah.
But for those, we do have a little bit of an older demographic that doesn't use those social platforms. So, luckily,
Hmm.
I was fortunate enough to. I went in, recreated our website, I built everything to where I was able to integrate everything. So our socials,
Nice.
you can tap straight into them from there. Uh, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, all of those things have been put in there.
Okay,
So
cool.
so you can literally just log on our website and find everything easier. And then oh, going forward, I think TikTok's going to be our big one. We kind of
Okay.
brought some brought some fun youth in to kind of help out with that. So
Yeah.
myself and then I got two videographers on board that are at this point we're just kind of making sports humor. So we're starting to get some good traction with that. So I think that's really going to take
Yeah.
off. So
That's great.
us being jokesters that we are, we're going to kind of bring as much amusement to it and give people something to laugh about. So
Yeah, you got to bring some humor. Can't be serious all the time.
can't be serious all the time. So that's really what it's something that we're looking forward to kind of bring out a little bit more, and that'll
Awesome.
bring a lot more awareness to AF1 as well as the Wichita Regulators for sure.
All right, cool. Well, in the YouTube description, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we'll have all the socials for the Wichita / ICT regulators to all those pages. That way you can follow along. And Chris, thanks again. We'll be in touch. All right.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Thank you again, Trey. Have a good one.
All right. Take care. Big thanks again to Chris for joining the show this week and talking about everything there is to talk about with the Wichita Regulators, both some of the good and some of the bad. So glad that we were able to talk through that, and I'm very excited to see the leap that the Regulators take from 2024 to 2025, both on and off the field with their social product, with their streaming, all that stuff. It seems like they got the right people in place and they got the right support system within the organization and within the AF1 to help them succeed. So very excited to see them take that leap. And be sure to give them a follow on all their socials as well. Have those linked in the YouTube description and on the Spotify and Apple Podcast description as well. So free agency started on October 1st within the AF1 and didn't get a lot of noise in that first week. We got some news out of Salina. Over the first 7 days or so, Salina announced a handful of signings. Their first one was the return of running back Tracy Brooks. He was one of the most dynamic players in all of arena football last season. So excited to see him come back. And he's been in Salina for a couple years now, and he's a fan favorite. And he just seems to fit in well with what they're trying to do because he is the focal point of that offense. And he's dynamic enough where it makes sense. It's like, yeah, that guy should be the focal point. But they're also bringing back a handful of other people on offense as well. Ed Smith Jr. at wide receiver. He helps stretch the field a bit so that Tracy Brooks has some running room when it comes to running the ball. They signed Jamario Benson. Jamario Benson's he's listed as an athlete on the roster because he's able to play quarterback. He stepped in last year when Charles McCollum wasn't able to play a couple games, played quarterback. He played a lot of running back, played some wide receiver, played some defensive back as well. So he's just a really unique piece for the Salina Liberty to utilize as they need it, because the arena football season is a long one and it can do some damage on some folks. So to have somebody with that type of flexibility and versatility is very, very needed, especially when the roster sizes are what they are. But then Salina brought back a familiar face in quarterback Javin Kilgo. Kilgo spent the 2024 season with Duke City. Duke City had their struggles on offense, but Javin Kilgo actually played for the Salina Liberty a few years back, so it's a little bit of a homecoming for him and a chance to redeem himself from 2024 that wasn't ideal, wasn't exactly what he wanted to put out there, but it's interesting to see the roster that Salina is starting to build. They're bringing back some familiar faces from years past, as well as re-signing some of the names that were dynamic for them on offense in 2024. So a team that I thought was going to make a much bigger splash with the free agency announcements than they have to this point finally announced some free agency signing news, or re-signing news, I should say, and that's the Albany Firebirds. Albany signed Jonathan McAllister, a defensive end who finished the season with Albany last year, started the season over in Oregon, played with the Orlando Predators the year before that. So he's very well versed in the arena football game, and he has developed into quite a weapon, especially as we shifted away from the Ironman football, playing both sides. He has just been a pass rushing specialist and just been able to get to the quarterback seemingly at will all throughout the season. So he's going to be a very important piece. And I kind of like that he was the first one announced for the Firebirds, because it kind of gives me an idea of what they think of him and how he's going to fit in with the team in 2025. But then they also announced another signing on the defensive line in Jamal Hickbottom. So he played for Albany last year, and he was a pretty good performer on the defensive line, and he was able to be a crucial part of that run stopping defense, and he was able to apply some pressure as well. So the first two signings for Albany being on the defensive line, pretty good. I like it. You would expect a flashier quarterback, wide receiver signing, a few names that come to mind that you think will probably be announced here very shortly, if it's not by the end of this week, at some point next week. But yeah, Albany's finally starting to make some noise, and there's honestly not a whole lot of noise being made in throughout the arena football, or I should say the AF1 landscape. Besides those that we announced, we are able to see some signings that were announced through some player agencies. Like, oh, our DB signed with Billings, our DB signed with Corpus Christi in the NAL. Like, we're able to see some of that stuff, but not a lot of these things are coming directly from the teams themselves, which is frustrating because it's like, guys, we hyped up October 1st, and it seems like Salina is the only team that's really cashed in on getting some of that attention around October 1st and shortly after it. So hopefully we'll hear some news from other teams very soon, and we'll be able to build up some of that excitement and start, getting some talking points heading into 2025 and what we can expect. Now, flipping over to the IFL, we do have some exciting signings to talk about. San Antonio Gunslingers, they made a very big splash. It was no secret that defensively they were rough around the edges last year. They were not very good. In fact, they were the worst defense in the league. It is what it is. So when you have the worst defense in the league, it's usually a pretty good idea to go after the defensive player of the year. And that's exactly what they did. They signed defensive back Rivarius Rivers from the Green Bay Blizzard and brought him over. And he is going to be a very, very good piece to build around for that San Antonio defense that looks to get things on the straight and narrow, especially compared to last year. I've said it all throughout the season last year, where if San Antonio even had a mediocre defense, like we're talking straight up eighth or ninth in the league, they'd be a playoff team and they'd be a very dangerous team in the playoffs at that. So improving the defense has got to be the number one priority for them. And starting with the defensive player of the year from the 2024 season, that's a pretty good start. And then we talked about the quarterback signings that they signed in the last episode, but they also signed wide receiver Glenn Gibbons Jr. this past week, who came over from Arizona. He was a very dynamic player for the Rattlers on their championship run, and he spent some time with Northern Arizona as well. So he'll bring a very nice veteran presence to that offense, and hopefully they can pick up where they left off in 2024, heading into 2025, because that San Antonio offense was deadly, number one in the league in a lot of statistics, especially, well, the most important one, points per game. But again, the defense was the absolute worst in the league. So that's why they had such a up and down season. They were thrilling to watch, but not for the good reasons if you're a San Antonio fan. So very interesting signings for San Antonio, and I like what they're starting to do. We'll have to see what happens as they build out the rest of the lineup here. And then heading over to Green Bay, where Reverius Rivers played last season, we have some news, not necessarily about a signing, but not necessarily a signing to the Blizzard, but a Blizzard player from the 2024 season getting an opportunity in the CFL. His name's Sean Mustin. He was a defensive lineman for the Green Bay Blizzard in 2024, first team All IFL. He was absolutely incredible, very, very good, very disruptive. He racked up a ton of tackles for loss. I think 7.5 sacks, blocked a couple field goals. Like him and Rafiq Abdul Wahid were just an absolute wrecking crew on that defensive line, and were a major reason why Green Bay had that top one, top two, top three defense all year. So the fact that he's getting a chance in the CFL with the BC Lions is awesome to see. So congrats to Sean, and we're excited to see what he can do up in the CFL, because he definitely earned a shot. And then shifting over to somewhere else in the Eastern Conference, we've got the Jacksonville Sharks. They announced Ed Vander, one of my favorite running backs in all the IFL through 2024. He was with Quad City last season. They signed him over in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's quietly putting together quite a roster on offense. They brought back Caleb Barker at quarterback for 2025. They've already re-signed Boom Williams, who was a late addition in 2024, but was figuring out the IFL game and how to be impactful and had some really good games towards the end there. And now bringing in Ed Vander, who is arguably the most efficient runner in all of the IFL. And he's also very, very good in the passing game as well. He led Quad City in receptions as a running back, so they kind of have him at a hybrid running back / wide receiver position. When they were able to feed Vander, hashtag feed Vander, 15 times a game last year in Quad City, good things happened because the offense flowed through him. So if Jacksonville can really get him the ball and feed Vander all throughout the season, I think Jacksonville will have a very good chance to not just exceed last season's win total, but be a playoff contender that they had been for the 10 years of existence prior to joining the IFL last season. So very excited to see what Jacksonville continues to do, because they're announcing a ton of signings, and some of the talent that they're bringing in should make an immediate impact for them. And I would expect them to really be a dark horse contender for like the championship, honestly, just because the coaching staff has been there before in previous leagues. They have one of the best coaches in all of indoor and arena football. That fan base is incredible. They have a great home field advantage. And last season was a bit of a growing pain. There was a lot of adjustments that they had to make to the IFL style of play. So yeah, Jacksonville's going to be a very good team, and I'm excited to see the next steps that they take. And lastly, we talked about it last week, but Vegas made it official. It was announced on the Vegas Nighthawks social media and the IFL social media that quarterback Jerome Johnson will be back with Vegas in 2025. That seems to be the first domino for Vegas, and we'll see what type of team they can build around him. But if there's ever anybody you want to build an IFL team around, Jerome's the guy. So we'll have to see if we can get him on the show soon and talk about the 2024 season in 2025 and beyond. But super excited to see Jerome get another opportunity to build upon an MVP season in Vegas. And that's the show. Like I said, not a ton of signings announced over the past week or so. Primarily Salina bringing back a lot of members of their team. I feel like there's a lot of signings that have taken place, but just haven't been announced yet. So I'm trying our best to be patient here. Patience is a virtue. That's what they say. But I'm sure that they'll be rolling out these announcements over the next month or so, leading into the schedule announcements as well. So I anticipate both the IFL and AF1 starting on March 15th of next year. That's right around the time that IFL started last year. And I don't think there's a reason for the AF1 to start so late in April like they did in 20 or like the AFL did in 2024. So I would anticipate AF1 to start around that same weekend. AF1's going to have a shorter 12 game season compared to the IFL's 16 game season, but we're going to have 12 weeks where we're going to have AF1, IFL, NAL, all the arena football you could ask for. So it's going to be a very, very fun time, and excited to see how everything starts to take shape. So, like I said earlier, if you don't follow us on social, please give us a follow on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok. It is at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB on all three of those. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, go over to Spotify, like an episode, rate the podcast on there. Do the same thing on Apple Podcasts. Let's crossbreed these things. Let's share these subscriptions here. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please rate the show, and then head over to YouTube. Been uploading some stuff on YouTube Shorts as well, and those have been doing pretty good. So you know where to find us. You know how to get in contact with us. Send me a DM on X/Twitter. Send me a DM on Instagram. Let's talk ball. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear? What types of content do you want to see? I'm all ears. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to collaboration. So if you're out there and wanting to collab on something, hit me up and let's talk. So only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend about 50 to 60 minutes of it here with Off the Wall, talking about arena and indoor football means a lot. So appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time.